All right, my name's Baby Vanta, and I bought this bike brand new, maybe like 3 weeks ago. It's a leftover new 2018 CB650F, and I put about 1,000 miles on it, and the bike's been great. Just a little bit about my riding history. I've been riding for 3 years here in Los Angeles, which I guess would count as 6 years to people outside of California, just because we have all year-round weather, and I've been riding every single day since then. Like every single day that I can, I've been commuting. I actually sold all my cars and stuff, but yeah, I started on a Rebel 250, then I bought a CB500F because I needed something safer to ride on the freeway, and then I stuck with that for 2 years, and I finally, I was getting ready to 2 years back to buy this bike. And just as I was about to make the purchase, I got fired from my job at the time, and I was like, you know what? This bike's treating me just fine. I have all this money I can sit on for the next year, and I just kind of went nuts. I didn't work for a year. All I did was just make a bunch of girlfriends and saw the country on a 500F. But yeah, I got to know that bike pretty well. It's a great bike for a beginner. I recommend it. Great bike in general. It's great on gas, but yeah, I'm trying to do. But again, I really wanted this bike when I saw it back in, I think, 2018 or 2017. I saw it at the showroom floor. I'm like, what the hell is this? And then I looked more into it when I got home after buying the Rebel. And I was like, oh shit, this bike's actually what I thought in my mind at the time. I thought this was the perfect bike. It's a 650. It's detuned for lower end torque. So it should be good for commuting. It should be good for touring. It should be good for the track. You shouldn't need something bigger than this. That was my thought process at the time, and I carried that thought process till purchasing this and riding it. And I'm starting to realize, like, yeah, this bike's great for all those things, but it's an absolute weapon. Like, I wouldn't recommend this for a beginner, only because you're putting yourself in dangerous speeds on this bike. Like me owning smaller bikes, I love to rev the shit out of the engines, or just rev the shit out of the bike, which would lead, and you could, because you would stay within legal speed limits. You can rev the crap out of the 250 and you're still going like 30, 45 miles an hour. You can rev the crap out of the 500, you're still doing 60 miles an hour. But this one, again, I rev this the same way I did the 500F, and I'm going like 90, 100 miles an hour. And that's just out of habit. It's not because I want to go fast. It's just because I'm so used to revving the crap out of bikes, and there's no like speed punishment for it. This thing's like, no, dude, you're going fast. I mean, granted, this is a stroked out version of the 600RR. So yeah, I'm not surprised that the power, the speed is there. It's just that, again, I wouldn't recommend that for a beginner, because odds are they're gonna push that bike to 100 miles an hour, because they could easily do that, and then they're gonna have someone out on the streets pull a U-turn out in front of them or whatever, and they're going to emergency brake. And sure, if they have the ABS version, they're probably going to keep the bike upright. But it's just, you're putting yourself in that situation. As a beginner, you should be practicing those e-brakes and stuff at slower speeds, and then gradually working your way up there. And this is why I bought this bike with no ABS, because I learned with no ABS. I learned the hard way what it means to ride above your means, and sliding sideways towards a semi truck that like pulls out in front of you. It's a scary feeling, and thankfully, I after how do you say it, the MSF course and such, they teach you how to get out of those situations. But I would probably not survive had I been doing 90 miles an hour doing that, pulling that same situation. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend this for beginners, especially here in LA. As I tell everyone, the CB500F is the max amount of power you realistically need for the streets. It served me fine for 2 years. The only reason I got rid of it is because, one, it looked ugly. It was all black. The paint was all neglected from the previous owner, and it sounded kind of lame, like gutless, kind of. Those are only two reasons, but the power, the weight, the handling, it's all there on that bike. This bike, again, it looks very similar to it, but it's got a beautiful exhaust on it, which unfortunately is already getting dirty within 1,000 miles. But you know what? spending time polishing it is not a big deal to me. But yeah, there's that. There's the fact that sounds beautiful. You know, I don't really care much about turning heads. You know, I've always kept my exhaust stock, but I've noticed this one turns just as much heads as my brother's CB1100EX, and he has an aero exhaust and all that shit on there. Or, you know, I've noticed that people don't turn their heads to Harleys, and he has like street pipes on it, and I think they're just tired of the fucking sound of the Harleys. But yeah, I noticed this one turns a lot of heads. I've had a lot of people ask me what bike this is. That some guy thought this is just a CBR that I customized, which no. I mean, granted, it is a very similar engine. Again, it's just actually the same engine. All they did was just stroke it out. Hence the extra bump in CCs. But yeah, some things I've learned on this bike that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. The only person I've seen who's kind of touched on this was Yaminu's channel, or yeah, his channel. That there's like an anti-power zone between like 5,000 and 6,000 RPM. Like you can stick on those 5,000, 6,000 RPM and it feels like the bike's going nowhere. Like it's not accelerating. It's just kind of flatline. And I think that's intentional. You know, I think the engineers at Honda or whoever's in charge of the fueling, it's either that or it's like inherent in the design of inline fours. But I think what happened was that what you call it, they either you stick below 5,000 RPM for commuting because, you know, it's easy going, it's got plenty of low end torque there. It's actually really surprising. I thought it was all top end, but I was like, oh, it actually has low end torque. That's cool. But yeah, you can stay below there for commuting, and you can do 45 miles an hour just fine. And you can break that you can rev through 5,000, 6,000 RPM, break that I don't know what you call it. You break the like the power barrier, I guess you would call it, and go up to the upper rev range from 6,000 to 11,500 RPM. And you can just go absolutely fucking fast on that. And have a blast, but of course doing crazy speeds. And I think that was, you know, if Honda did that intentionally, I think it was because the gearing on this bike is so short. They say they geared this for commuting, and I think people complain that you're shifting all the freaking time because you're just the gearing's so short. And I think that was intentional with the fueling, because if you have longer gears, odds are you're only going to be able to use 4 gears max in either of those power ranges between 1,000 and 5,000 RPM or 6,000 to 11,500 RPM. You know, you're only gonna have 3 gears to use in those power modes, as opposed to using all 6 of them if they're geared closer together. So I think that was kind of genius what Honda pulled off. You know, because I think, you know, I think what they intended is for this bike to be like very just fun and commuter friendly, which you know, they did it. It's just you know, just my riding style just doesn't really agree with the speed, but yeah, it's a great bike. It handles well. It has like the big bike syndrome where, you know, where if you're riding, have you ever ridden small bikes? They're kind of twitchy and they don't like being leaned over as much as bigger bikes because they don't feel as stable. And I kind of miss that feeling, because this one has that. It has a bit of both. It has a bit of a twitchiness to it at lower speeds, but then if you really, you know, want to accelerate the corners, it has that big bike syndrome, as I like to call it, like kind of like feels like it's on rails. You know, it's that stable. But yeah, you riding with 2 people. You know, my girlfriend, she's a thick girl, and yeah, this is actually pretty comfortable. You know, on the 500F, not so much, because I guess the seat was so high or something. But yeah, it would hurt my back to just have her right in the back, because she would, you know, put all her weight on my back and such. And yeah, I think it's just inherent in the design of the seat for the 500F. But this one, you know, I ride, you know, from, I don't want to say their location, but maybe like 50 miles round trip with her on it. Fine. The streets, highway, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't feel her weight back there. You know, it has these little like hidden passenger grip thingy-majigs for her to grab onto if she needs to. It also has this thing right here. which I don't know if she uses that, but I know she uses the side ones for sure. But yeah, she doesn't complain about the bike, about the seat. It's a little uncomfortable for me, just because like it digs into your hips more than I've experienced before. It's a small complaint. You can probably put like a seat cover on it or whatever. But yeah, those are my initial impressions. I'll make a new review like maybe 5,000 miles later or a year later or whatever, because I plan to keep this bike for a while. You know, this is my dream bike pretty much, and for me to finally buy it, you know, have a job where I can afford, where I bought this outright, but you know, to afford it so quickly, it's like, wow, I have the dream bike, and I just been enjoying it for the past 1,000 miles. But yeah, I highly recommend this for someone who has a lot of experience with bikes, who's confident. I should say that, confident with maneuvering the bike, because you know, how do you say this? You know, when you're a beginner, you're still learning, you're still developing those methods to maneuvering and just wrangling the bike around and stuff. And this is not the bike for it, because one, it's got a semi-high high seat height. You know, I've got like a 32-inch, 33-inch inseam, and it's got 31 point something inch inseam or seat height. And for me, that's great, because I hate bending my knees. That's why I don't really like riding the Harleys too much, even though it's a lot of fun. Because you're just squatting all the fucking time. Like it's not comfortable for your hips. But this one, I'm just, you know, straight. You know, my legs straight. You know, I usually just put one foot down. One thing I've noticed